Good evening, everybody. I think we're going to get started. We have almost 100 participants on the call. So I want to thank you all very much for coming tonight on a Thursday night. It's been a long week for some of you in areas where it may be cold. You may be having snow and ice where you're not used to it, or you're getting some nice weather. So thanks for coming. My name is Nicole Sprague, and I'm one of the managers for the high school outbound programs. And I also have on the call tonight my colleague Rachel Coffin. She will be managing the Q&A, and I ask that you please use the Q&A section rather than the chat box, and try to hold on your questions as we go through the presentation, because I would imagine I'll probably touch upon some of the topics that you're asking about. So welcome tonight. Welcome Global Navigators. If you've made it this far, you've probably recently received some good news. So I want to congratulate you all on that process, getting accepted. And if you received a scholarship for our programs, it's quite a something to be proud of. It's a competitive process every single year. We see very competitive applications, and some of the best academic and most motivated students across the United States apply. So congratulations. And if you didn't apply and you just enrolled, I thank you for having that courage and motivation to study abroad. It's a wonderful experience. So thank you very much. Congratulations. I know it's been a challenging school year. It's been challenging for us being in the market of study abroad, but we have a lot of successes to share and to get you excited about this summer as well. And so tonight we're excited to talk about that. So a couple of things we're going to cover tonight. I will go over that in a minute, but I wanted to remind you all, for the program that you've been accepted on, it's really important to go back to our website and look at that page for the country that you'll be going to. It is full of information and resources. And so I know it's very easy. I do it myself sometimes, just to reach out by phone or email to ask that question, but please spend some time in researching and looking at where you're going, because you will find some great stuff on the website. And here you'll see, you can find the daily life and activities right on the website where I've circled in orange there. You'll see the dates right under the session that you're going on there. I'm getting a lot of emails from parents, when are we leaving? When are we arriving? So just make sure you look at the web page and go over that. There's wonderful blogs from students that have traveled. So if you want to see a perspective from a student that went and what they did, you can read the blogs. And then there is a spot where you can download a sample itinerary. So if you're curious to know what you'll be doing Monday at 11 o'clock every week, or Thursdays, or maybe on a weekend, please go to that page and do as much reading as you can and get excited. What we're going to cover tonight, how we're planning for summer travel, and we're really excited about it, and the next steps that you need to do to get yourself prepared and to accept your scholarship if you've been awarded one. So planning for summer 21, as you can imagine, we've spent a lot of time planning. I wanted to share with you, we have been successful this year, even in the fall, and currently with students abroad already. We have high school students on semester and year programs that left in the fall in various locations around the world. We also have been running since October a 4-week block high school away program in Monteverde, Costa Rica. So this will not be new for us to be sending students during a pandemic. And I feel like we have been going through the logistics and the measures that we've needed to do to get students safely abroad, even in these current times. So as we get ready to plan your travel abroad, I wanted to let you know, these are obviously the countries that we're in, but we are on a daily and weekly basis, watching and working with our other departments at the organization on rates of transmission, as well as other things that have been going on in the country. And we will continue to do that through this process and make decisions that we need to make in order to make your journey safe and to run programs safely. And so currently, we know some of you have received some information about kind of hanging tight until we have announcements. We know thus far in Czech Republic, Germany, China, and Australia, these governments have been not very loose in the restrictions of going into the country, and they've made it a little bit more difficult for students to come in. We already know that. So those 4 countries we've already identified as probably going to be countries that will be more difficult. We know in the coming week, there will be across the globe some reevaluating of immigration and global travel. So we're waiting for those announcements and to see what has changed before we make announcements. So just hang tight as we work through this process. And just so you know, we will be making decisions on certain countries in the coming weeks. And so we ask that you be patient and put our trust in doing that analysis and strategy for you. What to expect to travel. So there's a lot of things, as you know, that have been happening just with going to school in your own community, let alone going abroad. So I wanted to cover a couple of things that we have already put in place and we're discussing. There is no COVID CIE vaccine requirement at this time. As parents, as you know, they're not even giving vaccines to this younger population right now anyways, but we are not going to be requiring participants to get a vaccine. If it comes to a point where countries are requiring vaccines, then most likely we won't be running programs in those countries. What we will be doing, and we have been doing all year with students, is that we will be asking students to do a COVID-19 PCR test 72 hours before travel. And that is to make sure that students are not traveling with the COVID virus and landing in country and going to their host families and joining our staff. And it is a requirement for many countries still at this time. We'll evaluate as we get closer to programming, but I'm pretty sure that that will still be something that we will be asking and mandating. We are going to be asking you, just like you've been doing normally, if you wanted to go see your grandparents or travel for the holidays, limit exposure 10 days before travel. If you know you're going to be traveling and you're going on program, we want to ask you please to make sure that you do the right things and the right procedures and safety measures to lessen your exposure to travel. Again, we want to express that if a government does mandate a quarantine, a 14-day quarantine, like a lot of countries have currently still, we will not be operating or having study abroad in those locations. So just so you know, right now, we'll be looking for those to be lifted in certain countries. And again, I know that there's been some confusion, but there are countries that still having a significant ban on tourists coming into the country, but we've been able to get students on programming abroad because these countries have legislation that protect students coming in for academic purposes. So we've been able to get around that. We are calling what we are expecting to have happen a soft isolation. So a lot of you are probably wondering, am I going to have to quarantine when I get abroad? What am I going to have to do? How is this going to work if they're quarantining? What we are planning for at the current moment is a soft isolation to be enforced on the first 7 days of travel. And this is going to mean that you will, upon arriving into a country, for the first week, you will be uh, quarantining, a soft isolation in your homestays or on CIE property, which means you'll be wearing your masks. You'll be doing online courses from your location. You will not be going to a classroom environment for the first week until we get through that isolation period. That does not mean that you're not going to be able to leave a room. You will be going outside into the community for activities and meeting up with smaller groups on the program from the day that after you arrive. We're just asking for the soft isolation and no classroom participation for the first 7 days. And we can go into more detail about that, but I did want to share that right now, that is what we are planning for, and that is what is being allowed by the restrictions and the standards that they're expecting for Americans coming into a country right now. Housing, what to expect. So some of you are going to be on language programs. Some of you are going to be on our global discovery programs. So there's a difference. You may be in housing provided by CIEE, or you're going to be in a host family stay. So if you are going on a language and culture program and you're going to be living with a family and doing the homestay portion of your program, we have surveyed and we have asked our host families that will be working with us this year that they have a accommodation that will allow you to have your own bedroom. So that is one thing that we're mandating of our families this summer. You will have your own bedroom. And for the students that are in the hotel, dorm, hostel considerations in some of our programs, you'll be in single accommodations as well. We have asked our host families, a lot of questions have come up about how will host families prepare themselves for your student, your child to be coming into their household. We've asked them to do the standard protocols of testing and quarantining before students arrive, not having gatherings in their home, not having extended family or friends come over, as they are going to be hosting an American student, and it's to the best for everybody's safety to take those precautions, just as we're asking you to do the same. And we do have contingencies in place in the event that we do have to do more online, or if we do have to isolate for a certain number of days if someone is showing symptoms or does come down with COVID. So we will have those contingency plans in place to be able to handle that if that case may arise. What's been going to be expected in class time? So again, programming, yes, it's going to be altered a bit this summer, but at the same time, once we get through that soft isolation, you're going to be going to class with your pod for your language lessons or your content study for global discovery. Just like you have to do now in school, where you're going to have to wear your mask. Yes, so you have to wear your mask on programming, in activities outside in the community, as well as in class. The instructors and the program leaders on program will be wearing their masks as well, just like you have to do here in the United States. And our curriculum, as I mentioned before, has been developed in a way that it would not be altered or less academic if we did have to shift to online schedule. We've actually run programs last summer during the pandemic when it hit online. So if we needed to do that, I know it's not ideal, but we have the ability to do that if we have to. For excursions, unfortunately, we did have to make a couple changes this year to normal programming. We will not be doing overnight trips for obvious reasons. But what we have found in most of our locations is that traveling a little distance outside of where you're going to be centered still has amazing historical and cultural activities and sites to see. So there won't be a shortage of really cool, interesting spots that you'll be able to visit and go to. And we will be making sure that those experiences are still available to you. And it's an important part of the programming to get that cultural immersion. We are going to be making sure that you're in smaller groups. So in the past year, and if you've been abroad before, you may see large gatherings of students or tourists. That will not be happening. This year we'll be having a normal group that goes to Spain. If it's 100 students traveling on a session, we'll be breaking up these groups into smaller pods of between 10 to 15 students per pod. And what that means is that you will be actually doing your classwork and your activities, I'll go back, with your pod the entire time of your program, whether it's 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And that is to maintain the safety protocols and to make sure that we're keeping safe and not adding to potential spread. We will be, if we use public transportation, masks will be on. We'll make sure that our excursions and our activities are led in a way that follow COVID safety protocol. And so I guess the biggest question many of you are probably thinking about, as it happened to some of you last year, if you're on the call and you were deferred to this summer, what if? So what if we have to cancel? It's the biggest, elephant in the room. And again, we want to be transparent with you that things change on a weekly and daily basis, as you've been dealing with for the whole school year and last year. So I want to cover a little bit about this. And we have a lot of documentation and forms and readings on our website that you can double check before you make your confirmation and accept your acceptance. If a program is canceled, then we are going to be offering you a couple of variety of options. So if CIE has to cancel the program that you are accepted on or confirmed on, you will have the option of transferring to another program that has capacity. You will have the option of deferring to next summer, and you'll have the option of a full refund of any fees that you have paid up until that time, minus the $25 application fee. So let me repeat, if CIE was cancel, you'll have those three options. If your program changes drastically before departure, and so again, this is giving you a little bit of a safety and a cushion. If we change programming other than what we've offered currently to you, you will have the chance to cancel and say, you know, this may not be the summer for me. It doesn't really feel right. I feel like I'm not going to be going on a program and doing what I need to do. And those three things, if we are to make significant changes, it would be things like canceling the homestay, part of your language culture program. If we've then asked you to stay in single accommodations or in dorms, that would allow you to be able to still get a refund and cancel. If we decide to switch classes to all online prior to leaving, that would also give you that assurance that you can cancel. And if obviously we're going to require a self-isolation upon arrival longer than 7 days. And again, there are certain countries right now that are asking that. For certain students and families, this is more than fine. They're willing to do that. For other families and students, this is not their cup of tea. So we're going to be giving you that option to be able to cancel as well. And again, any of these scenarios that do come up, we're going to be very transparent in providing you this information via email and also through confirmation calling. It's really important that you log into your application, see if there's any tasks that have popped up, and also if there's readings, but also to be checking your email and your junk mail for emails that are coming to not only you as a student, but the emergency contacts that are in your application, which I hope they should be your parents. So what are the next steps that you have to take in order to travel this summer, right? So these are things I really want you to focus on right now, because this is what we really need you to do in the coming weeks before the deadline. So the confirmation deadline for this year for scholarships, if you've been accepted on a program and you've been awarded a scholarship, is March 3rd. So we need to hear from you by then that you are either accepting your award and confirming and doing your 2 other tasks in your account. There's a home form to fill out. A health form to fill out and a passport task. So we need you to fill those out. And for those of you that have a deposit, you need to make those deposits, and all of that we're asking to be done by March 3rd. And what you can expect for the rest of March and April is us working through notices and things that you have to do, but everything will be in your account. We'll also be launching in several weeks our flight Fox partner plans, so plans for booking airlines. We're asking right now that please do not go and book flights to your program. We were asking that you wait until we give you the green light to do that. That's for a variety of reasons. One, if we have to cancel a program. Two, we want to make sure that we have down the flight options that are best for you, and where these will be taking and going out of, and how we can best advise you to book a flight. In April, you'll be, for the language and culture students, you'll be taking a pre-departure course, and global discovery students will be taking a Canvas pre-departure course. Sorry, it's been a long day. These are going to cover things like what's going to happen on program, what can you get excited for, are there readings you can do? I know I saw somebody ask a question already, how many bags can I pack? Those type of things will be covered in your pre-departure course. And for the language and culture students, you'll be taking a pre-proficiency test called STAMP. Again, this test is not to figure out if you can go or not. It's just to assess where you are truly with your language skills, so that we can set you up with a pod in country of similar language proficiency scores. So those are the things coming up. April 14th, we are asking for any balances in your tuition or your invoice to be paid. And for language and culture students, as you know, we have a school of record with Tulane University. You can earn 4 college credits. So we're asking you in your account to check off whether or not you want to receive those. And there's a fee for that as well to be paid on time. By May, we will have you all attending your pre-departure orientations. 1 week before travel, we'll be giving you and introducing you to your host family, which is really important for you guys to be able to connect. We're possibly throwing in some surprises with potential ways to connect all of you through social media with some different angles. We're kind of talking about that and trying to come up with some nice surprises for you all. But you will get to know one another soon enough for those students who are moving forward in your pre-departure courses. And I talked about the March 3rd deadline. This is really super important. So if you were lucky and fortunate enough and were able to accept an award and got an award this time around, I need you to go in your account by March 3rd and to complete those tasks. So if you have a deposit, you'll need to go online and pay that deposit. Even if you don't have a passport, it's okay. What we're doing here is we're trying to gauge how many of you have one and how not, so that we know when to follow up with you and kind of give you a planning guide. So please open that task and let us know if you have a passport or not. And if you don't, I strongly encourage you to apply now. With COVID environment, as you know, any type of government paperwork or the passports are taking longer. So if you do not have a passport and you're on this call, I encourage you to apply for a passport immediately if you are planning on going. And also to please fill out that health and wellness task. So when you do all of those things, you will immediately move to confirmed. You'll be able to see your status of your account will be confirmed at that point. Flight booking process, I want to go over this one more time. As I just mentioned, we'll be announcing in the week or two instructions and more information about this. So please wait for that invite. We have a partner we work with called FlightFox. Again, it's not mandatory that you use them, but I strongly encourage it. We've been with them for a couple years now, and they have been really fantastic in mitigating and helping us through those very difficult days of delays, cancellations, and they've just been really helpful in managing that with us in the event that those type of things happen. As you know, trying to call an airline while you're at the airport when there's a lot of cancellations can be daunting and sometimes almost near impossible to reach an agent. So it's good to work with a partner organization like this. They are a student airline travel agency, so they have a lot of expertise in student travel and large volumes. So that will be coming, and they're wonderful to work with in finding the best flight for you. They will be informed as to the best option and flight route that we're looking for you guys to take. We will, just so you know, we'll be asking when at all possible to be flying directly out of your cities or where you're located to the destination. And that is to make sure that to put extra safeguards there for you so that you're not going through 2 different airports and having transitions and stopovers. We'll also need you to pay attention to arrival windows, but FlightFox will help you with that. But again, you have our email address, and many of you are linked to your advisor in your territory to be able to reach out and ask those questions as well. And it's also really important, I can't stress this enough, if you are deciding to book outside of FlightFox or with FlightFox, make sure that you understand the change in refund policies with that airline. These change all the time. And I know through COVID, they've allowed and they've changed policies where they have no change fees. But again, please make sure you ask those questions before booking. A lot of airlines, we have recently found out too, and we'll be guiding you through this, that do not allow unaccompanied minors to travel. So again, these are all things that I'm addressing now that we're going to be on the lookout for and that we're going to guide you through those process. The pre-departure course, I wanted to kind of go through a little bit of this as well. What we're going to cover in that course, and like I said, that will be coming up in April. We'll be discussing CIE staff roles, who they are. We will be covering program rules and discipline, the same expectations that you have in your schools now and in your districts will be very similar to what we ask on program. What to expect on the travel day itself, things with your host stay, your host family, or your dormitory living that you'll be, grades and assessments, how those work. We'll be going over extensive health, safety, and security training for you, as well as you get that when you land in country as well, cultural things that just to inform you and to educate you about. Just like if I was having a teenager or a student go to New York City, I'd be telling them the same type of procedures and safety measures to be taking. Technology requirements this year, we are asking all students, if you have a laptop, to bring your laptop and a headset. So we're working through finding out that information. If you do not have a laptop or you're not going to be able to bring one, we do want to know that. And for many cases, even a smartphone will work in instead of a laptop. But again, we're going to be working through those technology requirements with you through these courses. We'll also cover how to manage your budget. I see a lot of questions about how much money do I need to bring? How much spending money do I need? So we're going to be covering those scenarios country by country during your course as well. And start, like I said, the exciting part, connecting you with students that you'll be traveling with. Pre-departure orientation. This is stuff that you will get as well that goes over how to utilize local transportation, what your accommodations are like. There'll be a lot on COVID-19 protocols and safety, probably not much different than what you've gotten here back home in your school. However, I will let you know that in some countries, they are very strict about mask wearing and following these protocols to the point where you can actually get fines if you don't follow them. So we're going to cover all of that with you so that you fully understand. We'll go over packing. We'll give you packing lists, so don't worry about that. We'll touch upon cultural differences and things you can expect in other countries to have you prepared for that. And also important context for travel day. You will not be traveling without knowing exactly what documents you leave and having numbers and contacts at your fingertips to call when you need. And as always, I blow through this. It's 8:30, so it's great. We have plenty of time. Again, we won't be staying on past 9, but I wanted you to know that our offices are open Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. You can reach us on the number below as well as our main email address there. We receive a lot of emails and we try to cover as much as we can amongst our team. So again, we're always there to take your call and to answer questions. And please be patient with us during this time. It's super busy, as you know, because we were able to give many of you awards. And so lots of students received wonderful messages. And so there's a lot of students and parents emails that we're managing right now. I think what I'll do is I'm going to turn to my colleague Rachel and have her let me know if there's common topics or themes that she thinks I might want to touch upon, or she can answer for you guys.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Nicole?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in trying to group some of your questions, there were several that were similar. So Nicole, if you can talk a little bit more about, for those who are on the Prague, Germany, China, Australia programs, their applications are still hidden, and the timing on when they might find out about their scholarship and what their next steps will be.
Sure. So I'm sorry, I know we breezed through it at the very beginning. As you know, there are certain countries right now that we have enough information that it's possible that they're not going to be lifting restrictions, making it possible for travel, which is why you got an email saying you've been accepted and you're not able to see your account, because we're waiting for those decisions to come through in the next week or so. So be patient. What we will be doing is we'll be emailing all of you that have been accepted to those countries with a decision of whether we can run or not. And we will lay out the options for you to either defer, go on another program, or cancel. And most likely each one of you at some point will get a call from an advisor. Not only will you have an email, but we'll be reaching out to you individually. And we're hoping to do that by March 7th, March 8th. So just please hang tight.
Thanks, Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
There have been several questions about I applied to one program and got accepted into another program. Can you talk about why that may have happened?
Sure. So I know it's disappointing when you apply to a program that was your first choice and you have your heart set on this, I really want to go to Japan, or I really want to go to the K-pop. And as you know, we talked about the competitiveness of these programs. We have thousands of students apply. Some years we have over 4,000 students apply. The two most popular programs, as you can imagine, is Korea and Japan. And we only have so many spots. So if you did not receive your first choice because it was one of those countries, I will tell you it's just because we just don't have the seats or the scholarships to be able to go to those two countries for the population that apply. So again, we do our best to give you your first choice in a year like this when we have extreme great applications and dedicated students doing a great job on their apps. We try to give you your second and third choice, which happens for many of you. And I will say that I always feel like no program is a bad program. Being able to travel abroad and leave your community in the United States if you've never traveled before is an amazing opportunity. And to get a scholarship when you're a teenager is a very unique situation. Not a lot of high school students across the country are being given scholarships to study abroad. So I know you have your heart dead set on a program. Please give your eyes and your ears a chance to listen to other students that have traveled in that program, read the blogs, watch some videos. I mean, New York Times has great coverage of different locations around the world. And so do a lot of just quick like searches of where you've been accepted to. My guess is that you'll start to get excited about the food and going there. So please be open to the choice that you've been given. And obviously it will just open the doors for you to travel in the future.
So we've had a lot of questions that are COVID specific. I'm going to do my best to answer individual questions, but Nicole, if you can talk a little bit more about, student expectations around following COVID guidelines, and being responsible, and what CIEE expects of students.
Sure. So again, it's a very tricky situation, just like you have now. I mean, many of you, when you go on Christmas break or you go away on a holiday, going back into school, you have to fill out a form saying, have you been exposed? Have you traveled outside your state? If so, you have to quarantine. We're kind of asking you to do things very similar to be able to travel abroad. And so we are expecting to receive from you 72 hours before travel a negative COVID test. In the event that you do test positive, unfortunately, you are not going to be able to travel. So you will have to cancel. And that should be something that's pretty obvious. Obviously, we would want the safety for you to be at home at that point. We're also asking you to take care and to really watch before you travel, because you're going to meet other students. You're traveling on a plane. You're going to be with your host family. They're doing the same thing. So we're really expecting you to kind of respect those expectations and to take this seriously. Again, we know that, nothing is safe, but if you do all of the measures by wearing your mask and hand washing, social distancing, if you do all of those things, it is really putting you in a better situation to, one, test negative and to stay healthy in order to travel. Again, we know situations happen. In the event that you arrive in country and you start showing symptoms, we are going to be testing students after that first week. So it's your responsibility, if you're not feeling well, to tell your host family or to tell your program leader of your symptoms. We're really asking that of you. Many of you, I know for my two children, I have to fill out a symptom form every morning before school. You'll have to do something very similar. Like if you're not feeling well, you have to take your temperature. You're responsible now. Like you're going to be traveling and staying with a family. If you don't feel well, you're going to have to speak up and tell your host family, I'm not quite feeling well. And again, that's expected. You're traveling abroad for the first time. If you have a stomach ache, it doesn't mean that you have COVID. It's probably, you're anxious or you ate something that your stomach's not used to. But you're going to have to get used to communicating and to sharing these things, and we will work things out for you on programming. If in your pod, I don't know, Rachel, if you answer these questions, but if any of you in your pod, let's just say someone does show symptoms of COVID and they do test positive, and you've been exposed to this person on the program in your pod, we are going to have to move to some type of soft isolation until we find that these symptoms have gone away. So there's a lot of steps and you'll be educated on that. And that is why we're asking you to follow all of these steps so that we don't get into that situation. Does that cover, Rachel, a little bit about what they were asking for?
Yeah, I think there were some more specific questions around getting COVID while abroad. What happens? What happens if you get COVID like just a couple days before departure?
Sure. So yeah, so getting COVID right before departure, I mentioned you will not be able to travel. We are, I guess, Rachel, just I always get stuck on this one, but we are offering refunds if students do come down medical, like if they are sick and they can't travel, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, you won't be able to travel if you're sick. If you get sick on program, if somebody does test positive for COVID, if a family member that you're living with tests positive and gets sick, we are going to have to do a soft isolation again. Again, we'll be monitoring if you come down with COVID, we'll be working with our staff, monitoring your symptoms, making sure you have everything you need, making sure that we take you to a local clinic to receive the medical attention that you have. This is not something that is out of the ordinary for us. We've been running programs for a very long time. Thousands and thousands of students coming in and out of the country, but particularly abroad, we are used to dealing with college students and teenagers that come down with a whole host of symptoms and unfortunate situations outside of COVID. So we're pretty familiar and rehearsed on getting medical treatment and treating that and providing support, and also being able to communicate immediately with families on the situation. Again, if you come down with COVID and you are isolating, a lot of families have been asking, can my child or my student travel? So most likely you will not be able to move or leave until you are symptom free. Again, we'll have more information on this, but I do believe, Rachel, if you can share a little bit, I do believe that you do have to make sure all symptoms are gone and you test negative before leaving, because US is requiring students, people to test negative before entering in the country.
Yeah, I mean, at this time, because the US is requiring it as a reentry, and anybody coming into the US from outside to have a negative COVID test, that yes, that is correct. Obviously, if circumstances change, then we will adapt to that. But certainly, we do not want to be part of the reason why COVID continues to spread in the world. So staying in one place is always the best answer.
Any,
Yeah, there have been a lot of questions about how host families are chosen. Can I choose a host family? Can I choose a roommate? How do I get in touch with a host family? Just
general.
generally.
Okay,
More
sure.
host
So
family.
yeah. So this is like a big topic, and obviously you guys, one, I'm very proud of you for applying to programs like this, because it's showing me that I'm so sorry that I have noise in the background. I have children home too. So, you're taking on this initiative to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and go live with another family. And so the things I want to tell you about your host family, we will be selecting your host family for you. And that is because we are in the business of doing this and we have success and we know how to place, we know our host families, and we look at your application and we get to know you a little bit in your applications of what you fill out for your requirements and your ideal host family situation. And we do pair you up pretty successfully with a host family that we think will be successful for you and for the family. And so when you are confirmed, there'll be a form that shows up in your account that asks you certain questions about, do you want siblings? Are you somebody who likes to help out in the family? So just specific things that you want your family to have or what you're used to, you'll be able to share with us for us to be able to make a better selection for you. We're for some of the host families that have accommodations with extra rooms to host, we might be pairing students up, but we are at this point looking at single placements. You will not be with a roommate, and at this time we do not take requests for roommates, and that's because we want you to have an authentic experience where you are meeting people for the first time and making new bonds. And also, if you had a roommate, you would most likely be more comfortable talking to them if it's somebody you know. So this is about an experience for your own personal growth and meeting somebody new. Our host families are chosen and we have a variety of different types of host families, meaning some of our host families are parents who have children that have gone on to college. Some of our host families have young children still at home. Some of them are single parents with a child living at home. And again, we don't discriminate on what type of families. It's really about, do they pass all of the vetting scenarios and requirements we have to be a good family to host an American student. So again, like I said, they come in all shapes and sizes. We go through a local vetting process with the police. We do surveys, we interview them, we go to their homes. They are trained on our curriculum. And so they are vested in having you come and participate with their family and having a positive experience while you're abroad. And I guess I'll say, I'm just going to throw this out there because maybe you're thinking, what if I'm with my host family for the first couple of days and it's not working out? Am I stuck? Do I have to stay with them? We do make switches. And so in the rare cases, and it does happen, there are occasions where students, it's just not feeling right, they're not comfortable, we're able to move students around. And so families, if you're wondering right now if there's a situation where your child is just not comfortable, we would need to know immediately. And usually students are pretty good at letting us know what's happening, or if they're not feeling comfortable and working things out. We have staff that are really trained professionally to deal with this. So again, there is the option of switching host families if that comes to the need.
Okay. I think the only other questions I saw about host families were around timing and communication.
Oh yeah.
We try to get placements out around 2 weeks prior to departure, but obviously every year is different, and this year in particular is going to be more challenging because staff can't necessarily go and do all of their in-person vetting as often and as frequently as they normally would. So you will get your host family placement, but it may be closer to a week prior to departure. We know this isn't ideal, so we'll do the best we can to get that to you as soon as possible. Once you do have the placement, you can communicate with your host family. You will have their contact information. And students, of course, can communicate with their families back at home. We suggest, using a Wi-Fi internet enabled, app like WhatsApp or FaceTime or whatever your preference is to communicate with your friends and family back home.
Yeah, I think like in many cases, you might find at the beginning you want more communication, and then you get comfortable, and then you won't be as, maybe touching base every once in a while. And for families, just so you know, we do have blogs, and we have students in the groups, in the pods, that they will be tasked and awarded to be blogging during the program. So you'll be able to check the website and potentially see your child in action and on program. And we do our best to try to share photos as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole, there have been a lot of questions about specific program size. Can you just talk about maybe a range of what students should expect for their program size for each
Sure.
session?
Yeah, so every program is different. We have sites that can accommodate very large number of students. The more popular countries like France and Spain and Japan, we in China, where we've had, numbers above 100, 200 within each session. We run 2 summer sessions. So this year, again, things are a little different. I'm expecting, we have seats for as much as we can travel. But I would expect that if you're going to one of those bigger countries in Europe, that the group could be close to 100. It could be between 50, or it could be as little as 25 students on that session. And again, within your pods, you can expect to have between 10 and 15 students that you'll be going to class with and doing your activities with. But in the location itself at the one time, you can expect between 25 students and up to, I'd like to say 200. We're going to shoot for that. Maybe in Spain and France, we'll have that many per session, which would be wonderful. But yeah, you can expect those numbers.
Thanks. There are a lot of questions about flights. I'm happy to try and do that as I actually was working on flight information today. So I wish that I had a more clear answer for everybody. I know you have a lot of really specific questions about flights. But the short answer is that we will be getting more information out to you in the month of March. We are working with our travel agent, Flightbox, who we have worked with for the last few years. They are wonderful. They are very experienced in working with parents and minors and our programs specifically. We are finalizing group flights currently, but we are needing to take into consideration where most students are from. So we're going to try our best to concentrate group flight departure cities from locations where a majority of students are located, whether that's West Coast, middle of the country, or the East Coast. This year, we're also having to take into consideration a lot of other factors, such as, due to COVID, such as we want to limit as much exposure for students as possible by not having you take many different layovers and legs to get to your destination. We are also wanting to avoid any flights that go from the US to another country before entering the host country. We want all flights to be as direct as possible. That's because there are a lot of border and entry requirements for each country that we are trying to manage and maintain and make sure all of our students have the requisite requirements met. We will be doing our best to offer chaperoned flights. Again, with the entry requirements, some countries are allowing students in, but they are not allowing anybody else in. So we are still trying to figure out, what that might look like. Again, we will still have group flights. So your student, if you don't feel comfortable having them fly alone, they won't. There will be other students on flights. We can always make sure that they're on a flight with the other students.
Awesome. I know it's a lot of information there.
Yeah, there were a lot of very specific flight questions. So I guess that in conclusion, we will be updating the flight FAQ resource that's in the reading section of your CIEE account in the next couple of days. I'm hoping it'll be there tomorrow. And that will give you some basic information. And then again, as we solidify the rest of these details, we will have another FAQ that will be way more detailed, that will answer a lot more of these questions in the coming weeks.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm going to cover one thing that seems to be popping up too, and I think this is really important because when we talk about next steps, like what do you have to do? The biggest thing you have to do right now is to let us know if you're planning on traveling or not, meaning accept or not. So we need to know your answer by March 3rd. I see a lot of questions about how to do that and how do we pay. So I'm just going to cover the two scenarios. If you owe a balance that is more than 1,000, your deposit is $1,000, and that will be a task that's in your account when you log in. It will show up right at the top, acceptance deposit, with your two other tasks about a passport and health. You can click on that and you can go ahead and pay your deposit. If your deposit is less than 1,000, you will be scrolling to the bottom of your application under the finance section where it will say online bill pay. If you do not have an invoice attached in your account, you will see the invoices down there. Just be patient. Our finance department is busy uploading everybody's invoices to all you wonderful students that got accepted. So just be patient, but that's where you'll go if your deposit is under 1,000 to pay online through that online bill pay. If you were accepted and got a letter for China, Germany, Czech, or Australia, you at this point don't have anything to pay because there's no instructions. So don't worry, there's nothing that you need to do other than to hold tight and wait for your next instructions. So that covers what you need to do by March 3rd. I saw a lot of questions about program choices if my program gets canceled. So I wanted to just share with you, in the event that you're on a language and culture program in Spain and we have to cancel Sevilla, we would do our best to offer you another Spanish speaking program, let's say in Mexico. Again, we will do our best to give you choices and to keep it within the range of interest. But again, we just don't know at this point what our portfolio will be for the summer. We're hoping for as much as possible, but we will be giving you options close to what you've either put in your application or what you're traveling on. See, we have a few more minutes, so we're happy to take some more questions. I'm just scrolling here to see.
I know there were a lot of specific questions too. I'm trying to answer those of you who have very specific questions about your bill or your fees or visa, whether a visa is required due to your country passport. If you have a question that's really specific to you, I would ask that you email us so that we can look at your account and discuss it with you. Because we won't be able to get in the details, into the details with you on this webinar.
And then for those of you who have deferred, I saw a question about deferral. So if those of you that unfortunately have been in this process for quite a bit of time, and we thank you so much for sticking around and having the tenacity to want to travel. If you were not able to travel last summer and you are slated to go this summer and you are a senior, and you'll be moving on to college, we will have specific instructions for you. Obviously, the scholarship was intended for the high school abroad programs, but I'm hearing that we may have some options for you. So look out for that if you are, like I said, a senior and you're deferred and we cancel your program, you'll have options as well. And I don't have enough details right now about what those options will be, but we're going to do our best to give you some options.
Nicole, I can't remember, I know we talked about this before the webinar, but did you answer the question about passport and timing and applying? There've been a few questions about that.
Okay, so I definitely said a minute ago, if you don't have a passport and you're intending to travel and want to travel, you need to apply immediately. Please do not sit and wait on this. If you can't afford it right now, as soon as you get the money, I encourage you to at least have the application filled out and get the process down. You need to go online and figure it out. In a lot of towns and cities, they are asking that you don't show up at the post office, that you fill out an an application with specific instructions. So please, wherever you are, look at what the instructions are for applying for a passport and get that in motion. I can't stress that enough. You do not want to wait till the last minute, because if you wait till the last minute and you are confirmed and you've paid your fees and your passport does not come because you've waited, there will be consequences in regards to getting your refund back and getting money back. So we're really asking you to be responsible about this. If you do it now or in the next month or so, you have, like, that's a good amount of time, but waiting till April or May is very irresponsible when it comes to trying to travel without a passport. For those of you that have a green card and that were awarded a scholarship and you do not have your country's passport and you don't have a passport, unfortunately, you cannot travel without a passport. So please email us or communicate with us if this is the case, so we can walk through what your options will be and if you have to cancel and reapply another year. Couple more minutes.
Another note on passports, it does say 10 to 12 weeks on the Department of State website right now. So timing wise, I would say, you know, if you are accepting and you are paying your deposit by March 3rd and you're planning on going, you need to apply for your passport this week or next week. You can pay to expedite. That's $60 fee, which I know is not cheap. So the expediting says 4 to 6 weeks. So that's, of course, a bit shorter of a time. There is a disclaimer on the website about the mail potentially being an issue as well. You know, we all know the USPS has been slow lately. So that's something else we want you to consider. I know that on your tasks, April 1 is the deadline for a passport. If you have filled in the do you have a passport with no and the date by which you've applied, we will take that into consideration when we're looking at those tasks and auditing for completion. Don't worry, but we do want to make sure that you actually, you know, that you enter the date that you applied for your passport so that we can follow up with you and find out what the status is.
And I think, Rachel, can't you pay by check too when you fill out the passport application? Or does it have to be?
I think you can.
Yeah.
There is a status, like, so once you apply for your passport, there is a way for you to check the status of
You're
your
right.
passport online. So that's another thing you can do to be following up over the next few months, is checking the status online. You know, we know that being beholden to the US government in order to travel on your program this summer is a hard thing. So, you know, we'll try and work with you and we'll try to be as flexible as possible. But again, we really ask that you apply for that passport as soon as possible if you don't have one, or if you need yours renewed, because we need your passport to be valid for 6 months after the date by which your program is ending. So that's by essentially next February.
And then I wanted to cover again the soft isolation. There seems to be a lot of questions about, you know, is it for every country? Can you go over it again? So right now we are expecting it to be for every location that we're going to be traveling to. And so the soft isolation will pertain to every single student on program for the countries that you've been accepted to right now. And that is a 7-day soft isolation, meaning we're going to be asking you, if you're in the host family, to be wearing your mask unless you're in your room or in the bathroom. And we will be having you take your classes for the first week online at the host family or at a CIAE location, dormitory. But you will be able to leave the house. You're not locked into your room and having food slipped under the door. But we are going to have, as of right now, that is what we're planning for. If things change, you'll be notified and you'll be told during your orientation, if you're lucky, for that change to happen. But you'll be notified if we're able to change any of those policies. So we have 4 more minutes, a couple more minutes. Well, on my phone, 1 minute. I wanted to thank you all for coming tonight. It looks like, you know, we've had 163 participants tonight. That's amazing. thank you all for being interested and looking at CIE as your study abroad provider. And during an environment that we have right now, I really appreciate everybody still having the interest to travel abroad and go on one of our programs. And so we've been sending a lot of students every summer, and we're excited to get everybody back abroad on these programs and having these experiences. Anything else, Rachel, you think I should cover before we end?
I did see a couple questions about whether we have a Spanish speaker on the team. I tried to answer the ones I saw, but yes, we do. So if you would like to speak to somebody in Spanish, please send us an email and we can arrange a time for you to speak with that staff member.
That's a good point. And again, if any of you need help finding resources, Rachel can post in the Q&A or in the chat the link to the summer safety page. It has a ton of information about housing, travel, and again, our website is updated as we get information. So remember to keep checking back. We will make sure to update that and keep things relevant and valid for the time.
And Nicole, are we still, I know that for other webinars, we've been trying to compile any unanswered questions and get those into a location. Are we planning on
Yeah,
doing that this week?
I think I can pull them at the end here. So we'll definitely have a recording. We have recordings on our website too of other senior management presentations. If your parents are interested in listening to our VP of Risk Management, Health, Safety, and Security, and our CEO, we have those on our website to listen to. So, but if any time you want to have a recording, we have those available, and we will try to get, I know a lot of you have asked questions. We're going to do our best to get those answers back to you in the day or so. So thank you again for attending. It's 9 o'clock and you either have homework to do or the week is over for you, whatever it is. Have a great weekend and thanks for coming tonight, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks so much, everybody.